Welcome to the YouTube Creators Hub podcast, where we help you conquer the internet one video at a time. We cover everything from how to start a YouTube channel to how to make a video go viral. And now, here's your host, the one and only Dusty Porter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the YouTube Creators Hub podcast, the one-stop shop for all things online video. If you're looking to either start, grow, or monetize your YouTube channel and just grow your overall digital or social presence online, this is the podcast for you. Each and every week, I sit down and interview wonderful YouTube creators, content creators on the internet, and I ask them about their struggles. I ask them about their journey, their strategies, how they've succeeded on the platform. And these creators come in all shapes and sizes. We have smaller creators, mid-sized creators, and a ton of large-sized creators sharing their valuable knowledge to help you, the budding creator or entrepreneur, grow your channel. We're brought to you by the fine folks over at TubeBuddy. Talk about them every week. If you haven't already, you can get a free 30-day trial. Maybe you've heard about TubeBuddy. Maybe you've heard about their browser extension, and you're like, man, I want to try that out. You can. You can use our link. You get a free 30-day trial, and by the end of that 30-day trial, if you're not convinced, you can just go ahead and let it run out, and you're good to go. But I think you will be convinced, and you can go ahead and sign up for a paid plan. It'll obviously help us out, and it'll help you out in the long run as well. A couple of other places where you can connect with us. We have one of the largest and quickest growing creator communities over on our Discord server. We also have a mastermind call that happens each month, and you get access to both of these by supporting us on Patreon for as little as $5. That's it, $5. You get access to both those things, and I promise you will not regret it. And then lastly, I do one-on-one coaching for your YouTube channel or your business. If that's something you want to do, you can check that out as well. And then I'll talk to you about my free newsletter later on in the show. But I would like to encourage you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the podcast wherever and however you're listening to your podcast. You just hit subscribe. That way, every time we release a new episode on Friday mornings at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, you will be notified. That way, next time you're on a walk or you're doing some chores around the house, you can pull up the podcast app and say, oh, there's a new Creators Hub episode in the feed. And I promise I will make sure that it's quality and it'll help you take your YouTube channel to the next level. So, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into this week's conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's conversation on the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. Dusty Porter, the host of the show here, as always, joined today by Jackson Lintz from High Key Agency, highkeyagency.com. He is someone who online is the proud owner of High Key Agency alongside his brothers and some other folks, pioneering PR firm dedicated to elevating business owners to the top of their industries through strategic digital branding, which is perfect for you creators out there. At the helm of their social media division, he specializes in crafting standout personal brands for entrepreneurs, propelling them to achieve their first 10,000 followers and beyond. He is very passionate for first-generation entrepreneurs. His drive and dedication are rooted in the pursuit of excellence, which I love, and innovation in the ever-evolving digital landscape, and I feel like it's never moved faster than it is now. Jackson, how are you doing today, my friend?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thank you for the introduction. Appreciate being here.
Absolutely. So, I want you to tell me just briefly a synopsis of what you do online and how it can relate and help creators.
Yeah, 100%. So we focus on elevating personal brands across social media and Google, pretty much their entire digital presence. So we help people in the top 1% of their industry beat their competition by developing their digital personality. So that looks like getting publications on Google as far as like USA Today, top ranking publications, so that when they search up their name or their industry, they pop up at the top. And then on social media, posting content across all the platforms and beating out their competition that way. Because like we all know, like a lot of businesses like lawyers, doctors, all these businesses, how do you differentiate who's better, right? They might have a similar level of expertise, but how can you develop that trust? And you can develop that trust online because that's where everyone is right now. So that's what we do. We build out the media and digital persona of these top 1% industry business owners.
And if I can ask you, where does YouTube come in? Where does YouTube play a role in people building their brand online for these people who are in the top percentage of their industry?
Yeah, 100%. So there's a big difference between short form content and long form content. Now, short form content is amazing for growth and getting viewership, but that viewership has to go somewhere where they can build a deeper relationship with you. And so that's often to their Google articles, which is a longer form written piece of content, or YouTube videos, which is longer form content they can really digest, understand their personality more, get a deeper understanding of their expertise. And then there's also podcasts and other mediums, newsletters, stuff like that. But the long form content is really the authority and authenticity building content, while the short form content is more of that growth content.
Okay, so that's really good because people oftentimes come on here, YouTube creators, and I interview them, and some of them are all about short form vertical video. Others of them are down on it. Maybe you can explain just your perspective of the vertical video, the short form. I call them like dessert is what I've always related them to. They're fun, but they're not really something that's going to help you. Yeah, they can grow the numbers. They can inflate things a bit, but give us your perspective for someone who works with people all the time trying to organize all of these different bits of content and where to invest your time.
Yeah, 100%. So I actually had an argument with one of my clients recently because he wants to be super focused on long form to the extent of not doing short form. And we've already been doing short form for a couple of months, and we've had videos get hundreds of thousands of views. And this is on YouTube Shorts when he's trying to focus on YouTube. And what I was trying to explain to him is, yeah, those eyeballs might not be as valuable as the long form YouTube eyeballs that people are watching all the way through, but it's the repetition of showing up on someone's feed and showing face, right? You know, the rule in advertising where, you know, you have to show up like 7 times before someone even thinks about doing deeper research on you or buying from you. Is the same goes for consuming your content. So to just create long form content, number one, it's harder to grow, but number two, you're going to be showing face less because it's a lot harder to create long form content than short form content. So you want to be creating a high volume of short form content to continue showing face on a daily basis. And then they can come from that as a top funnel to your long form content as a bottom funnel. And you're just showing up and doing more reps that way.
What do you suggest with a client that you're working with? Let's just say for YouTube, and then obviously there's TikTok and there's Instagram, and we can get into that. But what is the cadence of which you tell them that, hey, listen, we need to do this? Is it a daily short, 2 daily shorts, and then a long form every week? Or have you found a sweet spot, or is it a case-by-case basis? Go into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah, 100%. So when I'm speaking with clients, a lot of it's time because these guys are high-level clients. They're focused on their business. They're making money in their business. So it's all about how much time can you allocate towards being a creator, right? Ideally, where we become a full-time creator because that's the end game and where we want to go. But when it comes to understanding their time allocation, if they can film 1 time a month, then let's at least do daily posting. So let's get 30 videos in that time frame and be able to post daily across each of the platforms, right? And then if they can film multiple times a month, then we want to get up to 3 posts a day across platforms. Instagram, you really don't want to go over 3 just because like you're spammy and it's a different platform than TikTok and YouTube. YouTube and TikTok, you can get up to 6 posts a day. But again, we strive for 3 posts a day as the optimal way to beat out competition, because think about it, if you're posting 3 times a day across the platforms, right? Not everyone's going to see all your posts anyway. So if you're just posting once, then people might not see that day, or they might not see multiple days in a row. But if you're posting 3 times a day, the odds that they see one of those posts each day is pretty high. So we optimize for 3 and the absolute minimum 1 a day across all the platforms so that we can have that omnipresence instead of just posting across one platform. Because again, with the TikTokification of all the platforms, it just makes sense to post across all of them: Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn, X. Like they all have similar algorithms, especially the short form video platforms. So we want to be posted across all of those.
So if you were talking with the YouTube creator, just imagine that they're in the top 1%, the people in the clientele that you work with, people who are at the beginning phase of their journey wanting to grow a brand, and they're trying to grow this YouTube channel. Where would you start with them? What would be that first conversation you have with them when you sit down with them and you say, hey, all right, you're here right now, but we know where we want to be. We want to build this thing up, and your digital presence, and YouTube is a large part of that. Where would you start? What would be that initial conversation?
Yeah, 100%. The start is coaching on content creation. Okay. Because at the end of the day, to just come out guns blazing, like we're going to do YouTube videos, we're going to crush it. Like it's a lot harder to create content than people think. That's why we like to start with the short form content, because it's an easy way to get people in the door, getting wins, getting views, getting engagement, seeing that people are actually interested in what they're speaking about. And then we go into the long form content when they're a bit more familiar with showing up and creating content, right? Like you're talking to a camera, it might be a little less natural. There's other ways of doing it, right? You could do this podcast and clip it up and stuff like that. But we like to start with short form content and then merge into long form content. So the YouTube videos, the podcasts, and publish those. And that seems to work really well so that they can really develop that experience in front of the camera, creating content, having all like the little tactics learned and under their belt, have some actions in place, and then they can go on to create long form content.
If you were a YouTube creator and you're working with them and you want to suggest to them other platforms outside of YouTube, you've mentioned Instagram, you've mentioned TikTok, good grief, there's LinkedIn, there are so many. Where would you focus? Like, where do you focus with a client that only has so much time? And I assume y'all do some of the back end stuff for them and whatever it may be. But for someone trying to build a brand, where should their time be focused if they're trying to expand beyond YouTube?
So for YouTube creators specifically, 100% the game is Instagram, just because of how much authority the platform has right now, right? A lot of people still spend time on Instagram across generations, and it drives a lot of authority. When you have a nice Instagram page, you have your highlights, your bio, you have everything in order, and you're posting content consistently on Instagram, it's a nice place that people can go to follow, and also follow your stories, which is a very underrated feature where you can share more personality, more insights on your day-to-day, what you're doing, updates on what you're doing. Those are things that creators underestimate the value of, especially when someone likes your content and likes what you're doing. To have that personalization, Instagram's a great place. And now TikTok's also a great place for that, but it's a little more difficult to, I would say, crack the nut. And most people are using Instagram for that reason in terms of going to stories and following people that they like. TikTok is more of interest. So it takes a little more effort to really hit the viral mark and build an audience on there. On Instagram, I just feel like stories is a really good place to nurture people.
Yeah, the TikTok algorithm seems to be, like you said, hard to crack.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different ball game over on TikTok for sure. So let's talk about the nuts and bolts now. So you sit down with them. These people are highly successful, and the creators that I work with starting YouTube channels, they're highly successful oftentimes outside of YouTube. So we know they've got that thing that'll make them tick, right? So with that being the case, the nuts and bolts of what are you coaching them on as far as trying to set them up for the most success they can have when they start publishing that content? Are you talking about camera presence? Are you talking with them about the gear? Give us the whole detailed dive into, if you want to optimize this content that we're producing and helping you put out, and if you're a YouTuber listening to this podcast, how do you optimize that? How do you get better at it each and every day?
Yeah. So I'll start with camera presence, just because that is the initial things that we go over. Because at the end of the day, you can have all the editing, you can have the professional video set up, you can have all of that. But if you show up with low energy, or the content that you're creating is not providing value, then it's going to suck at the end of the day. So what I focus on is, number one, with camera presence, making sure that you have energy. Your facial expressions are moving, you have body language, you're energetic, you're passionate about what you're talking about. And those four things will lead to really good content. And it's different for everyone, right? You don't want to be inauthentic, right? Like, you don't like to smile a lot, then don't be smiling a lot. So you want to be authentic to you, but you still want to have that upbeat energy, and you want to be interactive with what you're talking about. And then next, I would go to value, right? So there's 3 value pillars. There's inspiration, there's education, there's entertainment. Now, with our clients, we mainly focus on education, just because they're usually older, they have a lot of business experience, and they're very successful. So they have a lot of value to give in terms of education. And then we'll tie in some inspiration, and entertainment comes from just personality in general. So we focus on those 3 value pillars. And then we go to the content side of things, and we're like, what makes up a good piece of content? There's 3 things really. It's stories, it's lists, and it's processes. right? So you want to share stories, ideally personal stories, so that people are getting to know you more at the same time as being educated by you. And then there's lists and processes. So lists is just listing out a few things like I've done in the past bit as I'm speaking, just so people can take those value nuggets in. And then there's processes. So that's a step-by-step process on what they need to do. Like we're going over right now in terms of like where they need to start and where they need to go to create really good content.
So you said there's inspiration, there's education, and there's entertainment. Those are the three things that you go on. I do believe that what you said at the top there about camera presence is a lot of the times the barrier to entry, because people think that they can just get on camera, they can do whatever, and we're in a weird time in YouTube, and you correct me if I'm wrong, not just YouTube, but online as a whole. People are starting to go away from 5-6 years ago. The successful YouTubers got on camera and they were yelling and they were in your face. And we are in a time online where I feel like people have toned that down a lot, and people want more of the authenticity, the more transparency, which is what you talked about. I know some of the best shows that I've done here and the best bits of content I've done online that have been successful monetarily and just brand growth wise is just me being open and real about like my family or my daughters or the things that matter to me that have gotten me to where I am. Have you found that to be the case as well?
For sure. Yeah. People are looking to connect with other people that align with their values, beliefs, what they're about, and develop that relationship online. When you're creating content, you want to focus on not only sharing one aspect of what you're doing, but sharing all aspects of who you are, because that's going to allow you to develop the audience that you actually would want to connect with. Like how I think of it is if you were to go into a room with all the people that are following you, would you actually want to hang out with those people or have conversations with those people? And if that's not the case, then you're probably creating the wrong content, because you want to be connecting with your audience. It's a little different on the entertainment side because like you're really going for a broader audience. I'm more speaking on the educational side of things. You want to be educating almost like you're educating from 3 to 5 years ago where you were. So you're giving the steps to your past self on where you need to go. And then that way they can take that and get up to your level.
How do you and can you improve presence, camera presence, and just the way that you are when you're creating content? I'm going to be completely honest with you. There are some days when I'm just like, man, this stuff can't be taught. You almost have to have that inside of you. But then I work with other clients where they start out and I look at their video and they're so tight and you could almost like pop them if you touched them or push them over.
Yeah.
And then months later, they're just loose and they're flowing and you can just feel it. I just feel that I want to ask you, someone who works with these people who may not have that bone in them to begin with, is this something that can be taught? And what are some things that people can do listening to this to improve how they come across on camera?
There's two things. Number one, action. Number two, not being afraid. Personally, I'm an introvert. My ideal day would be sitting in front of the computer, working, not speaking to anyone, not showing up on podcasts, not creating content. But I understand the impact that I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
And number one, I have to put in the action and the reps so that I can improve every single day. Because that's the only way. Who's going to create better content? Someone who created 10 pieces of content or someone who read 10 books on creating better content? The person who created 10 pieces of content because he actually got out there and did it. And now the next time he's going to improve. The other person's not going to know what it's actually like to create content. And then number two is overcoming fear. And this goes for every area of life, but especially in creating content because it's scary. It's scary to show up and share your values and share what you're about and really go all in on your personal brand and how people view you. And people will view you in a negative way because not everyone's going to align with you. But if we understand that creating content is a natural filter for who you want to be in your life and who you don't, then you understand that it's just meant to be that way. And the people that don't align will unfollow, and the people that do will follow, and you will soon build an audience that knows, likes, and trusts you and really cares about your opinions and what you have to say. And that takes time, it takes action, and it takes being fearless.
Hey guys, a quick pause in the interview this week to talk about my new weekly newsletter called The Entrepreneur's Minute. My plan for the newsletter is to only send out one email every week with a recap of what's going on in my business, maybe do an income report letting you know how much money I've made that week or that specific month, an update on my YouTube channel, and just a behind-the-scenes look of what it takes to be a creator, the books that I'm reading, the products I'm discovering, new AI tools and resources. So if you're just looking for a way to better connect with me, Dusty, and see what I got going on, and the different things that I want to write about each week, maybe it's my family, maybe it's my business, it's absolutely free. It's called The Entrepreneur's Minute, and I would really appreciate it. All right, now back to the show.
Do you have them watch themselves back, like on a monthly basis, or go and watch other creators in their space or people who are doing it well and have them take notes of, hey, watch how they present, watch how they do this or that? Or are you worried too much about like them copying or mimicking what they do?
Bro, that's actually a really good idea, like getting them to watch themselves back on the videos. We don't do that as much, but we definitely do competitive research. Just because at the end of the day, oh, don't compare yourself to others. I think that's kind of bullshit. Don't let that affect who you are and what you're about, but you have to compare yourself to others, because if they're doing something right that you're not doing, then you're doing something wrong or you're going to be behind, right? So you have to look at other people to an extent and be like, what are they doing really well? How can we put a twist on it and make it our unique way? So we do competitive research to get them to watch other people, because again, a big part of content creation is inspiration for yourself, like being inspired, right? Like you can't just show up and create content every day and think that you're going to be motivated every day. You're gonna be like, yes, I love this. I'm sure there are some people like that, but for the people that aren't like that, you have to gain inspiration from somewhere. And that's often from other people that are crushing it in what you're doing.
I've done this for years in that I listen to other interview-based podcasts, even if it's not in my niche or even if I'm not quite interested in it. For instance, I'll listen to, say, the Tim Ferriss podcast or someone who I think is a very good interviewer, and I will take actual handwritten notes of how they are presenting, how they are asking questions, how they are letting certain moments breathe. And I found that it's really helped me, because I have a Notion board on my back-end productivity suite where I can go and pull from of like, I want to get better. I want to clear my head. Like, what am I doing? How can I be better? I go and I watch and consume these things where people are successful, and I try to take notes on that. I think as creators, we need to do that more. Let's talk trends now for a minute. We all know AI is a train coming down the tracks and there's no stopping it. We know that. What are some trends in content creation that are happening right now and into the future that you believe that creators need to be on board, or else they'll be left behind?
I think personal branding is a trend in and of itself, right? And I have a belief that niche creators, so people creating in one niche, in the next 2 to 3 years are going to get taken over by AI, because AI is going to be able to create the content in that specific niche better than humans will be able to. So the only advantage that humans have when creating content is making sure they're building a personal brand that is all encompassing to who they are, that AI wouldn't be able to replicate. And so that's understanding, sharing your own stories, but also sharing the emotions that were tied to those stories, because that's something AI can't replicate. And that's always what I think about when it comes to AI. It's like, how is it going to evolve in the next 3 to 5 years when it comes to trends? And I see that being a big one. Niche creators by personal brands are in, because that's what people can connect with. And when people go to education, you can even see it now, like when you search stuff up on TikTok, like there's a ton of video examples of what you're looking for. That's only going to become more rampant as AI increases and it's able to edit videos and do all these things. So how you stand out is by building that personal brand and sharing your beliefs, your values, who you are, what you're doing on a daily basis, documenting your process. All those things are going to be so valuable. And I'm scared for creators that aren't doing that or don't plan on doing that.
Yeah, I also think there's going to be a bit of AI fatigue as time progresses. I think that if you're a creator, you need to be learning everything you can about the new tools, whether it be artificial intelligence or something else. You need to be on the forefront of that. That's how a creator in a channel on YouTube goes to die, is when you just rest on your laurels and everybody's going here and doing different things. You can't do that. You got to be on the precipice of that. But I already see it in that myself and other people, like, man, I would much rather watch a tutorial from an actual human than an AI generated with robotic voices and the stupid music in the background. I want a human who's doing it, right? And just the other day, I was putting something together for my daughter, and there was a bunch of videos, and the one that I stuck with was this just old guy who was showing me how to do it. And man, those are the videos that I think are going to be, if you're standing out and you're growing that brand and you know what you're doing, I think you can really succeed in these waters. But man, there's going to be a lot of folks who fall off, and I could not agree more. As far as the tools of the trade, like what are some software, like hardware recommendations that you have? Like when you're bringing on a new client, I'm assuming money's not an object for them, but for people who it is or whatever it may be, what are you suggesting they utilize and use to create this content?
I would say for new people getting into the game, I would go the authentic route. So if you don't have a budget for editing or hiring a videographer, like I would go authentic. You could even use like captions in app on TikTok. I would honestly focus on TikTok just because it's the easiest platform to create content on. And then you could use Snap, I think, or TikTok Snap, which is like a platform that you can upload your TikTok video, download it without the watermark, and then publish it to the other platforms.
Right.
So that's what I would do. And I would focus heavy on TikTok and understand that algorithm because it's also the fastest and best algorithm out of all the platforms right now. So you're going to be able to get a good feedback loop on how your content's doing in a faster turnaround time, and you'll be able to publish more and more. And I would go for a high amount of volume on that side as well. You can use CapCut as well. CapCut's a really good editor to get some basic captions, but going in app, you'll have a better chance of also performing better because you can use the background music from TikTok as well and do everything on TikTok and then just republish it other places. And then in terms of camera, you have your phone here, which is like a better camera than movie producers were using like 20, 30 years ago. So I would just pick up let's say you have an iPhone, just do it on the front facing camera and put it near a window. If you can't afford a ring light, then put it near a window that has good lighting, or you can use a ring light and then put it to 5.6 depth and then 1.3 exposure so that you can have a little more of a nice presence, and then also put it in cinematic mode so that it has better quality.
I love that. You can tell that you've worked with people before who have no idea how to do any of this because you're walking them through exactly what they need to do. And I love that. That's wonderful. You may have to pause this podcast, go back, listen to the last 1 minute of what Jackson just said. Do you ever worry about quality dilution or lack of quality because of the amount of content that people publish? Like, how do you balance with your clients? You mentioned earlier in this show about how important value is, how important that is. How do we make sure that we're able to create content on a consistent basis, but it doesn't drop quality?
Yeah, 100%. Like we've had clients in the past actually drop down the deliverables that they're doing simply because like they can't keep up or they're feeling a little burnt out. And that's completely fine. Then we come up with a plan. Hey, how can we get back up to that level of deliverables while still providing value and not being burnt out? And it often comes down to that case of I'm not loving the content I'm creating, and so let me go in a different direction. So number one, you have to love what you're creating and what you're talking about. Like you have to be very passionate about it. And then number two, I would say don't get too hyper focused on that because you're going to get burnt out creating a high volume content just around that one thing. So I would expand and create multiple content pillars. Personally, I have 10 content pillars. And people are like, what, 10 different things? How do you stay focused? I'm building a personal brand, right? So I'm talking about multiple things. I talk about personal brand. I talk about content creation. I talk about storytelling. I talk about my faith. I talk about health. I talk about scaling a business, productivity, all these different things. And it's because it allows me to dip into different ponds when I don't feel like creating about one specific thing. So I would say that's a big one in terms of if you want to create consistent high value content, because more than likely as an individual, you have more than one thing that you're an expert in or that you know enough about that you could share value on. And personally, I like to share value on multiple things because it builds that personal brand more and I'm able to produce more content.
One of the greatest struggles for people trying to build a personal brand, or even specifically YouTube creators, I've found working with them, coaching them, is they're not very good storytellers. And you mentioned storytelling, and I've watched a number of your Instagram feed. You've gone to your Instagram feed and saw what you're doing over there and the different bits of content you're creating. You're very good at capturing a topic and then being able to wrap a story around it. How can a person get better at becoming a storyteller? Because I would assume the people who you need to tell about the exact settings on their iPhone of how to get them to look good, these people might not be good storytellers. They're a good doctor, they're a good plumber, or they're a good whatever it may be, but trying to get them to be a good storyteller is different. So what do you do in that regard?
So I'll keep it simple on this front. When it comes to storytelling, I'll stick to short form content on this side of things, because in the short form piece of content, you have about 30 to 60 seconds to tell your story and make an impact. And so you want to focus on one story, one challenge, and one goal, and then one resolution. But there's always a resolution in a story, or else it's not really an effective story. So one story, one goal, or one challenge and one goal. And that's going to allow you to take the viewer on a journey that doesn't get branched off, right? You want to look at it as like a tree. When telling a story, it's like a tree, and you want to go from the bottom of the trunk to the top of the trunk. You don't want to go off on the branches, and you definitely don't want to go off on the twigs. And a lot of people end up doing that, and they lose the viewer, because this is how people are scrolling. You need to catch them and then bring them on a journey through the story. And it's just got to be boom, flow. And that's how you get there. And in terms of like how to improve storytelling, again, it's reps, but then it's also writing. You have to understand how to write. And a lot of my videos, I'll script out, especially the short form videos and like where we're headed right now. Some of them will be like just like riffing off, or reaction videos will just be riffing off. But if you're doing like a sit down video and you want to get someone into your video, you need a good hook. And you need a written script, which is why I say writing is super good. And you don't have to have a written script, but it helps especially when you're creating a high volume of content.
If I were to talk to a creator or someone trying to build a presence online right now, the one skill that I would have them work on the most, this sounds crazy, being video and a podcast or doing audio, it would certainly, it would be writing, because it is the cornerstone of everything that you do. I'm a person who, I don't like to script out my content word for word, because I find it makes me seem more robotic. But what I do is I use the writing as a structural kind of starting point of where I want to go in the video. And then I can use my talent of being a presenter and storyteller to riff off what I have here in my copy. And that's what I found to be the most successful kind of way that I can do it. Now, you got to find what works for you, which is very important. Now, you are a person who, you really have talked a good bit about short form vertical content so far in this episode. I want to ask you, can you give us when you're doing short form on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or whatever, how are you doing it from start to finish? Do you have an idea? Give us everything from idea generation to when you publish that bit of content. What's your workflow look like?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Personally, I have a team working behind me. We have content managers, editors, and all of that stuff that pretty much do everything on the back end side of things. But to walk you through the whole workflow, I like to keep it authentic by posting what I think and what I am wanting to talk about on platforms like X and LinkedIn. And that way I'm like documenting. I post every single day. I'll post like 1 to 3 times a day, just like value bits or like things that I'm thinking about or things that I want to talk about, post it on there. And then my content manager will take that and script out videos for one film session each week. And so I'll have about anywhere from 20 to 25 scripts by the end of the week to film on the weekend. And the scripting format that I like to use a full script, and sometimes I'll read over it and just really digest the central idea and what I'm trying to get across and who I'm trying to speak to, and then just like riff from there. Or I'll really follow the script. If it's like a lot of like points, or if it's like a process, it's sometimes hard to remember the specific process that you're going through and the examples that you're using. So sometimes it's easier to just go off the script, right? You read a couple lines and then you talk. Like there's no shame in doing that. And it makes the content creation process easier, and it comes off cleaner. Like with short form content, you don't want to stumble on your words. No. You don't want to have any gaps or pauses, because it's going to hurt the viewer retention, right? So you want everything to be quick and clean. So that's how I do it on that side. And then there's also content formats that you have to think about. So that's just one content format, direct to camera, scripted. Then there's also reaction videos. And there's a new format that we've been utilizing that I just got a 5 million viewed video on Instagram. I think it's getting up to 10 million as well. And that's reposting a viral video with a personality building comment. So to explain that a bit further, so the reaction or the viral video that I reposted was like this guy eating chicken nuggets, and the chicken nuggets flew off the building. And he like screamed, and my comment, I like just did a comment, and like with my profile above it, my comment was like, when God wants you to eat healthier. And that video got 5 million views and grew me like 2.5K, and it's probably going to grow me more followers. And that's just from that one video. And so those different content formats we prep for as well. The reaction videos are a little easier to film. My team finds all those videos, and I'll just sit down, watch them, riff off a couple of things, and then we compile it into, a reaction video that are performing very well right now. And then we find those viral clips and do that format as well. And we're constantly implementing new formats. We're going to clip this podcast up and post it as well. When I do podcasts, we clip it up and post it. And so it's just testing formats, seeing what's working, seeing what you like the most, right? Like maybe you like to just do podcasts and you don't want to do scripted videos direct to camera because it feels uncomfortable. Like I can say personally, this definitely is a lot easier to flow. Like I'm speaking to you. It's easier to get into a rhythm and then just have someone get clips from it. But then again, it's also harder to get clips from that if you don't have a team. So you have to work with what you have. But yeah, that's the content creation workflow. And then post-production, obviously I have the editing team that goes in, edits all the videos, and then posts it across all the platforms: LinkedIn, X, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Yeah, I think that with what you're saying is like a be everywhere kind of strategy, in that you're hoping that somewhere along that net, there's going to be that person will get captured, right? Being a follower.
Yeah, 100%. If you have the budget and bandwidth, of course.
Right.
Like how I operate and the people that we work with, omnipresence is something that we strive for. But if you're a solo creator, you're doing everything yourself, then it might be easiest to just focus on one platform with one content format, right? So if you just want to do reaction videos and post on TikTok, then you do that, right? Or if you just want to do YouTube videos and maybe break that up into some shorts, you just do that. Or you just want to post on TikTok, then just focus on that until you get really good. Then you can expand out. Maybe you'll start making some money and you can bring on some people for a team. But start small, start niched on the platform, the type of content that you're posting, and then expand from there.
Is there a creator or creators that you have online that you look at for inspiration and create someone specifically that you can shout out that's just, oh man, like that's the stuff they're doing is great, and I take inspiration and use kind of some of the things that they're doing to implement with your clients and the stuff that you're doing with your personal brand?
Yeah. So I think Gary Vee is a really good example of someone who loves the game of social media and attention. And you can see it in the different formats that he constantly tests, right? Like he always has new formats coming out, like this versus that, overrated, underrated, like these types of formats that are really interesting and creative. And so I always look towards him for inspiration in terms of what he's doing. He was like one of the first ones to come out with the Instagram thumbnail and then swipe to video, which is a very popular format now. He talks about reacting to articles, so having articles on the green screen in the background, which is a very effective format for not only TikTok, but also Instagram. And so following creators like that just love the game and they're constantly trying to improve their content creation process, utilizing and testing different formats, seeing what's working. I'm trying to be that creator as well. But Gary Vee is one of them. Eric Thane is another one who has a book called Capture, Don't Create, which is a really inspirational book that kind of lit a fire under my ass to start creating a ton of content. So I would check out his stuff. Alex and Layla Hormozi, they came out of the gate just guns blazing. And that's not true. Alex Hormozi was creating content for like 6 years before he started blowing up, but they have really solid stuff. And they're a good example of every piece of content that they're posting is very valuable and better than their last one.
I think too that you look at those three people that you mentioned and anyone succeeding online, you have to have confidence in what you say and how you come across in video. Because the reason why I say that, the reason why, let's say Alex and his wife and what they're doing, it's great stuff, but oftentimes there's the thing you hear, fake it till you make it. You've got to sound like and feel like when people are seeing and consuming your content that you are the authority in that topic. And then you start building that trust, and then you start building that brand. You can't get on there and dip your toes in the water. You've got to go, like you said, you got to go. The thing about Gary Vaynerchuk is that he's going to put himself out there. He's going to test. He's going to try. He's going to break things until it works. You've really got to be confident in yourself as a person and your personal brand and your channel that you're growing and your audience you're trying to capture, of knowing who that target audience is and being confident that you're going to help them get and achieve what they are coming to you for. Would you agree with that as far as just the confidence aspect of it?
Yeah, 100%. It comes back to not being afraid. Yeah. So when it comes to confidence, like, it's the results that you get at the end of the day. And like what I was saying in terms of me being able to get a lot of views and our clients being able to get a lot of views and build personal brands has allowed me to come out and share with more authority, right? Yeah. And you build momentum, and momentum builds more confidence, right? So once you start sharing, once you start getting engagement, getting feedback from your community and the audience that you're building, then you can really go to the next level and start pumping out more content and start going on more channels. And you start somewhere, but you end up in another place because of your confidence levels.
Yeah, it is like that snowball rolling down the hill. You got to build it up over time and build that muscle, which is what we've talked about before. Jackson, this has been awesome. I feel like me and you could riff on this stuff for a long time. Can you just let my audience know where they can get in touch with you as far as if they want to reach out to you, and they may not be able to afford what you're doing, but if they want to 100%. Follow you on socials and things like that, I'll have all these links in the show notes, but let them know the best place to get in touch.
Yeah, 100%. So I have a couple of valuable assets as well that I can share with your audience. So you can go to me on Instagram. So Instagram.com @JacksonLintz. My handle is Jackson Lintz, and you can shoot me a DM on there and I'll share with you two assets. So one is just like a initial personal branding asset for you to get started, answer some questions about yourself so that you can understand the brand that you're trying to build a little more. And then another one is a story bank template that I have. And this is something that I use personally, where I store all my stories and I follow a framework, which is a story teach tool framework. And once you have that, you'll be able to put your stories not only on paper, but then also have the lessons and the questions that you would ask an audience from there. And once you have your stories on there, then you can also develop your personal brand better, because you can understand more of like where you've experienced things and how they've affected your life and your journey. And it's a very impactful thing to write down your stories. So you can hit me up on Instagram for those two things.
Absolutely. And I will have that linked, his Instagram handle linked and profile linked in the show notes of this episode. Jackson, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, appreciate it, Dusty.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to this week's episode of the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the show for absolutely free in your podcast player of choice. Also, there are ways you can connect with us. You can support us by supporting our sponsor, TubeBuddy, as well as supporting us over on Patreon to get access to our creator Discord community. And I also offer YouTube coaching and consultation, YouTube channel reviews, and just overall business coaching if that's something that you are wanting to look into. So make sure you check us out there, and we'll see you next week.